Online harassment, it can feel completely inescapable. But there's a really powerful legal tool that's designed to fight back, and it's called the Online Harassment Injunction. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what it is, how it works, and crucially, what it takes to get one.
The internet can be such a relentless place, right? And when someone is deliberately, methodically setting out to cause you alarm and distress, it can feel like there's just nowhere to hide. So, what can you actually do? What is your legal recourse? That's the big question we're going to tackle today. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the problem, the digital menace. Then we'll introduce the solution, a powerful legal shield. After that, we'll dig into how it all works, the path to getting one, and finally, we'll look at some amazing cases that show how the law is adapting to this modern age. Okay, so before we jump into the solutions, we really have to understand the problem from a legal standpoint. You see, harassment isn't just one mean tweet or a single nasty comment. Legally, it's defined as a course of conduct, which means it has to happen on at least 2 separate occasions, and it has to be deliberately causing someone alarm or distress. So how do you legally put a stop to that course of conduct? Well, that brings us right to the heart of our topic, the online harassment injunction. You should really think of it as a formal, powerful legal shield that is specifically designed for these kinds of awful situations. So at its very core, what is an injunction? It's a direct order from a court. And this isn't a suggestion, it's not a polite request, it's a legally binding command. It tells a person that they must either stop doing something specific, or, in some cases, that they are required to do something. And these injunctions, they generally come in 2 main flavors. First, you've got a prohibitory injunction. This acts like a giant legal stop sign. It forbids someone from continuing to do harmful things like, say, publishing your private information. And then on the other hand, you have a mandatory injunction. This is a direct command to act. It actually compels someone to do something, like take down a harmful website or remove some malicious online content. Okay, so we know what an injunction is, but how does it actually function in the real world? I mean, what gives this court order its teeth? Let's dive into that. In a lot of cases, the whole process kicks off with something called an interim injunction. Think of this as the legal equivalent of pulling an emergency brake. The full legal process, it can take time. So a court can grant this temporary order really fast to give you immediate protection while the full case is being prepared. It's an absolutely crucial first step. But what happens if the harasser just ignores the court order? Well, this is where things get really, really serious. Disobeying an injunction is called contempt of court, and it is a major offense. We're talking about consequences that can include imprisonment, huge fines, or even having their assets seized. This is exactly what makes an injunction so much more than just a piece of paper. Now, this all sounds incredibly effective, doesn't it? But how does a person actually go about getting one? This next section covers the practical and, let's be honest, often challenging path to securing an injunction. And this brings us to a critical reality check. Injunctions are not easily awarded by the courts. They just aren't. Judges don't hand these out lightly. There is a very high bar to meet, which helps ensure that these powerful orders are only used when they are absolutely necessary. So to get an injunction, it's not enough to just feel wronged. You have to prove it. You need a good, arguable claim, and it has to be backed up by sufficient evidence. You also have to convince the court that this drastic legal step is truly necessary for your protection. And finally, the way the application itself is worded and presented is absolutely crucial to its success. Now, here's a really important detail, especially for anyone in immediate danger. In truly urgent situations, it is possible to apply for an injunction without giving notice to the other party. This is done when there's a genuine fear that just notifying the harasser would prompt them to cause even more harm before the court has a chance to step in. So, how does all this theory actually apply in our crazy, fast-moving digital world? Well, this final section looks at some pretty groundbreaking, real-world cases that show these legal principles in action. A real game-changing case happened back in 2011. A UK court granted an injunction that forced Google to reveal the identities of anonymous users who were defaming a business online. This set a massive precedent. Your online anonymity is not an absolute shield you can use to illegally harass people. And law just keeps adapting in these fascinating ways. More recently, a court actually allowed an injunction to be served not by post, not in person, but directly through an Instagram message. I mean, this just proves that as technology creates new challenges, our legal system can find really innovative ways to respond. But what about your own privacy? You might be thinking that seeking protection shouldn't mean you have to expose yourself to even more publicity. And you'd be right. Courts totally recognize this, and they will often grant something called an anonymity order right alongside the injunction, which protects the identity of the claimant throughout the entire legal process. So, after all of that, what's the bottom line? Well, an online harassment injunction is genuinely one of the most effective weapons we have for fighting back against digital abuse. But as we've seen, it's also a complex legal instrument that requires a really carefully prepared and well-evidenced case to be successful. And all this leaves us with one final thought.
We've seen the law adapt in incredible ways, from unmasking anonymous trolls to serving legal orders through social media. But technology, as we all know, is not slowing down. So as our digital world keeps evolving, it makes you wonder, what will the next legal shield even look like?